Hello, welcome to the Capital Games Podcast. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. Before we get started, I want to point out that we said last week that we were going to do a reaction supercut of what happened at the Game Awards. Didn't plan out the way I wanted it to. The video did not turn out very well. We had a couple of issues, so instead of putting out a inferior product, we both decided the best thing to do was to tell our reactions on the podcast today. So if you're waiting for that, we're sorry about that, but we'll get over right now to what we thought of the Game Awards for on Thursday. Before we get to what was announced, why don't we just talk about our reactions to what won and whether we really care or not. But Zero, why don't you go ahead and get started on what you thought of the winners of the night?
Didn't expect God of War Ragnarok to sweep as many awards as it did. Mostly because I figured, all right, well, the game everyone seems to have been obsessed about this year was Elden Ring, so I guess Elden Ring takes all. And that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, all right, Elden Ring takes all, whatever, just can't really fight it. And then, to my surprise, there were occasional moments of the award goes to God of War Ragnarok, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a fun surprise, especially just because I was just kind of going, yeah, I can already see it now. Just there's going to be someone who's going to gripe and go, so rigged. Just Elden Ring wins everything. God, all the jury panelists are just flat out brain dead or something. But yeah, just kind of a nice, pleasant surprise to kind of see just things went the way it did. It was definitely no surprise that Elden Ring did win Game of the Year. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we'd both joked about it when we were watching it together by going, all right, the world has not ended. The streets will not be filled with blood and people rioting. That Elden Ring did not win Game of the Year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I honestly did not. I thought for a little bit throughout about a few weeks before the award started that there was a possibility that Ragnarok might take it, just because Elden Ring came out in February, March of this past year, and God of War Ragnarok is like the it thing right now, and unfortunately the critics, not even just with games but movies, do the same thing as well. Critics tend to celebrate what just happened, just as a reflex of at times. So I wouldn't have been too surprised if we were to find out that, God of War Ragnarok won Best Game of the Year. But yeah, that would have caused a minor Twitter meltdown on Twitter with the gaming community. So not surprised Elden Ring won. Not really surprised God of War won the awards it got. Go over the few that they won. They won Best Narrative, which I don't see a lot of people having a problem with. Best Score and Soundtrack, Best Action Adventure, Best Audio Design, and there was one more. It was Best Performance by Christopher Judge. My God, how did they get Al Pacino?
Yeah, that was a shock. I was just like, what? Al Pacino? What is he doing here?
I know. And the first thing he says, now I don't play these video games. Ooh-ah. I'm like, okay. Clearly you don't. So what are you doing here? But I was like, but the thing I thought about that was, this gives them credibility now that they're having an award-winning, very respected actor coming to do an award statue. And if it was one of those, I'm here, I'm just going to read what's on the prompter, and then I'm out of here, that would be one thing. But he was there for a while talking about his grandkids and how he notices the things that games are doing. And this, I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's going for it. So God of War, I think, won the most awards of the night. Elden Ring got Best Game. It also got Best Role-Playing Game, Best Art Direction, which doesn't surprise me. Yeah, Elden Ring won the big one, but God of War won the most. So it's kind of how do I put this? I guess it's kind of a go-between, or it's like, they won, Elden Ring won the most. won the big one, the one I guess that quote unquote matters. But God of War took home a handful of trophies. They also did innovation and accessibility, that too. So yeah, like I'm not too bothered by what won and everything.
Well, I would say one of the things that I did think was interesting, not really limited to a single game, but more just on what got awards and stuff like that, was Nintendo ended up picking up some pretty good awards during the show. Splatoon 3 got Best Multiplayer Game, which honestly knocked the socks off of me because I thought this was just going to be a dead gimme for Modern Warfare 2 because that one game has recently come out. It's been in the mind share of most sort of multiplayer heavy people and everything, and I was just like, yep, that one's going to Modern Warfare 2, and then it was just like, nope, Splatoon 3, and that one legitimately surprised me because I didn't think that one would go to Splatoon 3. Best family game was taken by Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Yeah.
Again, just one I think was a gimme for Nintendo, so good on them for that one. And then best action game. This one also surprised me as well too because Modern Warfare 2 was also listed as a nominee for this category, and I'd figured, okay, whatever, just it's gonna be what it is, and then. Ended up being, hey, so the winner for this is Bayonetta 3, which knocked my socks off and everything. And of course, YouTube chat lit up and in a hilarious way because there was so much commentary of "suck it, Helena Taylor, best action game."
Yeah. It didn't surprise me too much that Bayonetta won, at least. Or, actually, the one that did surprise me was Splatoon. That one surprised me a bit. Because Splatoon, before it came out, basically people were like, it's just Splatoon. Why are they doing a third one? But Splatoon 3 ended up being the best selling of any of the Splatoon games. So, it shows what they know. So, that kind of surprised me. I think the real question is, do people really care? I mean, this is another thing that we noticed when watching it, is that they did not put a lot of time and effort to the awards themselves. A lot of them were just announced in clumps. Like, and here are the nominees and the winner is, okay, next one. I'm not surprised that they did that, really, because even I think and I think you would agree too, I don't think people really care about the awards when it comes to the Game Awards. They want to know what the announcements are. So
yeah, I was seeing a lot of that sort of sentiment online, just people going, yeah, I don't really care about the awards. I just care about, the new stuff that's being announced, new trailers on projects that are already announced, things of that sort. So that seemed to be the general sentiment that I had noticed.
Right. And that's been a common thing for the gaming industry for a long time. This is what's very different about movie lovers and, I guess, discourse around movies. Because with movies, they'll talk for a long time as to what they think are underrated movies, overrated movies, best movies, and talk about... and then if it's that time, if it's like the Oscars or the award season is going, they'll talk about what they think should win. And then after it happens, they'll say, oh, who got robbed? They go into exhaustive detail. Whereas gamers are like, yeah, that's cool and all, but what's next? And it's kind of what the industry itself has conditioned gamers to be like. Because as much as they want to have maximum sales and everything, They want them to look forward to the next one. They want them to be ready to purchase the next DLC and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the awards, in a show called the Game Awards, doesn't really matter. Which gives me the question I have to you. Can we see in 5 years them taking away the awards and just having another E3 style presentation in December?
Ooh, that is an interesting question. Yeah. If it ends up being that, just somehow just the sentiment towards the Game Awards just sort of falls apart, then yeah, potentially I could see something like, hey, we're just gonna, change things up. We're not really gonna focus on critical awards and stuff like that. We're just gonna, show off, show off all the things that make the gaming industry interesting or whatnots. Then yeah, it potentially could end up turning into sort of a new winter E3 sort of situation. So I'm definitely not going to say, just it's not possible or anything, but yeah, I could potentially see something being changed up and maybe seeing sort of like a push towards a different direction or something.
Yeah. I don't think my thought on it is I don't think they will completely get rid of the Game Awards. They might call it something different and say, we will announce the winners of the Game Awards on Xstream and do it like that. The Oscars actually has two award ceremonies. There's the technical Oscars, and then there's the Oscars that they show on TV. And I think that is where it's going to land. I think they will either they'll have like two different award ceremonies where one is where all the technical things or the genre things or whatever it is announced there. And then they'll have the awards where it's mostly announcements, and then sprinkled in here and there, they'll announce the big winners of big categories like Game of the Year, Player's Voice, blah, 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 whatever. So right. I think I see that in 10 years, maybe. Unless people really start caring about the Game Awards. Let's be honest here. Right now, people look forward to the Game Awards, not because of the awards, because of what new is going to be coming out. So that's my feeling on it. So why don't we get into what really matters, which is the announcements from the Game Awards. Tons of stuff once announced. Tons of stuff. So, and it's funny, was Keighley was saying, "Oh, this is gonna be a much shorter Game Awards this year," and I called it too. It's like, yeah, by 5 minutes. So
yeah, and the funny thing is, he ended up clearing up his mention about the Game Awards being shorter later on by saying, "Hey, I know that I said that the Game Awards will be shorter, but to clarify." The Game Awards will be, I guess you could say, more focused was what he should have said, because he had clarified that, hey, yeah, so we will focus on just big awards and major announcements, and less on the smaller stuff. This wasn't me saying, hey, we're not gonna do musical performances or anything like that. And in all honesty, he should have just led with that in the first place, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, it'll be shorter."
Yeah, because it really was not shorter at all. So I was a little surprised by that. But okay, let's get into the announcements that happened. We'll go through some small ones first. Returnal's confirmed for PC. The big thing that was announced this past week is the requirements for the game, which I don't know if you heard this, but the requirements are pretty steep. It's requiring or recommending, I think, 32 megs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM in order to actually play the game. So I'm okay, but I already have Returnal on PS5. But man, 32 gigabytes of RAM? Holy crap! What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I saw the mention of 32 gigs of RAM, I was just like, wow, that's a bit steep. Not too sure about many people, because I know for the longest while the zeitgeist has been, oh yeah, you don't need more than 16 gigs of RAM. If you're loading your system with like 32 or, God forbid, 64 gigs of RAM, then you're wasting money, because that's overkill. And that has always been kind of the general zeitgeist of things. And I'd been kind of in that same mindset of, okay, probably true. So no big deal, whatever. And then seeing that get dropped, I was just like, ooh, whoa, yeah,
Hmm.
that's quite a steep requirement. So just this is a bit interesting that they're going that far, but maybe it's just how the system uses things. I don't know. I know in my case, I'm much like you. My gaming laptop has a whopping 64 gigs of RAM,
Hmm.
so I mean, I'm more than covered for that, unless it needs like insane DDR5 RAM for some reason.
Well, it needs a
But
20 for recommended. It needs a 2070 Super.
yep, I'm out because
Yeah,
my machine's got a 1080 GTX.
yeah. So, and that's a game that requires the animation to be very smooth. So it can't be hitchy at all, or you're going to lose your run. So I would say, unless you have a beefy PC, you might not want to bother at this point. But we'll move on from there. Street Fighter Six's release date was confirmed for June, and they also showed off 4 new characters. I want to just say DJ looks freaking cool. Like, the 4 characters they showed off look pretty cool, but I was really happy with what they did with DJ. Now, I'll probably never play as DJ because I'm not a person who likes charge characters, but I am becoming more and more impressed with how they are aesthetically showing off the old characters in the game. I'm really curious to see what they do with Cammy specifically. So, other than
Yeah.
that, like, good.
The irony of the announcement was the fact that one day before the Game Awards, the English PS4 store had accidentally turned on the page to pre-order Street Fighter 6.
Yeah.
And then once somebody noticed it and was like, "Oh shit, shit, shit," and went to try to turn it off, as always, just the internet is forever. So someone caught it and then was just like, "Hey guys, I think this was going to be announced at the Game Awards, but yeah, just looks like the release date is going to be early June." And of course, everyone's just like, "Yeah, watch this be announced at the Game Awards." And sure enough, that was exactly what happened. It was like, "No, well, here we go."
Yeah. Yeah, but I can't wait. Well, God, June is going to be a busy month, but I can't wait to play that. That's going to be awesome. Dead Cells Cross Castlevania crossover DLC. Dead Cells Return to Castlevania. It's coming early next year. I mean, Dead Cells is a game that a lot of people enjoy, me included. But I'm kind of surprised that they're still tacking on DLC to this game.
Yeah, the community for the game is quite huge. So
Okay.
I mean, I imagine the community is probably overjoyed because they're just like, "Sweet, more content for this game. Love it. Can't get enough of it."
Hmm.
But yeah, I imagine anyone who might be on the casual side might just be like, "Oh, that's neat," but just I have since moved on to other games.
Well, not even just that. I mean, this would be something that I would say, business wise, would make a smart standalone game to me. So I don't, unless they do something ingenious with the DLC. Like, not that I don't see the point. I get the crossover appeal, but this would be something that I wouldn't mind them to say, "Oh, we're making a standalone thing for this, and it's $10, and there you go." Like, that I think would be a cool thing. But for it to be DLC, then that means my assumption is that in order to get to that content, you have to beat the already done content on Dead Cells, and that takes a while in Dead Cells, as good as it is. So I don't know. I would have preferred that to be just a standalone thing, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Let's get into some of the announcements that happened. Hades 2 was announced from Supergiant Games. This is their first sequel they've made to any of their games. And I am kind of mixed on this. I know people are excited for this game, and I understand why, because Hades was a really good game. But the thing with Supergiant is that they make different types of games on each game they're doing. And I'm afraid this is going to be a cash grab. I would love to be wrong, but what other innovations could they come up with with this type of roguelike action game that hasn't been done? Or are they just going to go and do the same thing, but maybe a little more in depth that they did in Hades 1? Because call me crazy, but I don't think anybody is really asking for another Hades. Yeah, maybe some are excited, but to me, it's like Hades wasn't a flash in the pan thing. It deserved the praise it got. It was very good. But I don't hear more people saying, man, I would really want more Hades. I think they were very satisfied with what they got. So, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Hades, I thought was an interesting enough game. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not opposed to more Hades 2, but I know it was just kind of like, oh, neat, interesting.
Yeah.
I know some people who just absolutely adored the hell out of Hades have just been like, oh my god, this is the best thing. This is Christmas for me. It's just like, okay, well, that's neat.
I just hope that Supergiant Games is doing something else on the side. Because what makes them interesting is that even with how successful their games are, like, we haven't seen a sequel to Bastion or Transistor, and I would say that I think they are more celebrated, especially Bastion. Bastion was a big deal when it came out. For them to do one of Hades, and especially so soon, is just a little odd to me. But hey, maybe they will come up with something different that I haven't thought of. And maybe that's why they decided to do Hades 2. That's the other thing, too. To call it Hades 2 when it's clearly not about Hades is another thing where I'm like, you couldn't come up with something else? But okay. Or X person, a Hades adventure or something. Because I understand that you have to have Hades on there. But it would be kind of weird to call it Hades 2 and Hades isn't in the game. So,
Yeah.
We will move on. BioShock creator Ken Levine's studio, his latest game is Judas. Judas was an interesting looking game. I rewatched it last night when I was downloading videos. Not much in the terms of gameplay or anything really, but it seems to have like a dark-ish sense of humor. So I'm definitely interested in it. My question is, when is it coming out? It's probably like 2023. But there has been rumors upon rumors that 2K is developing a BioShock sequel. If it is true, would 2K decide to try and release that around the time Judas comes out? Or will they give that game... Bearing in mind, if Judas is going to be anything like BioShock, will it be something that will pretty much will make Judas seem like lesser, or take the eyes away from it? Is my question. But it looks interesting to me.
As someone who enjoyed BioShock 1 and 2 and was kind of lukewarm on BioShock Infinite, this one looks interesting. And yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Judas to see how it ends up ultimately panning out. So, I will be watching that one with a lot of curiosity.
Yeah. I would like to know more about it. But since it's Ken Levine, and you were lukewarm on that is right. You were pretty lukewarm on Infinite. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun enough, but it was just kind of like the story was not, in my opinion, not as strong as like BioShock 1 and 2.
Okay.
So, but I know that that's kind of the general opinion of most people who played a lot of the BioShock games. So I know I'm generally not alone on the opinion.
Next thing we have here, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League had a cinematic trailer where the only thing they announced was that Kevin Conroy will be voicing Batman for the last time, which is nice, is sweet and all, but we kind of really need gameplay for this, and this is due out. Is it scheduled for when was it? It was Suicide Squad is
sometime next year.
I thought I heard June.
I want to say June was the target timeline for it, but nope. Right before June, May 26th of 2023.
Okay, either they're going to show off some gameplay or this is going to be delayed until the end of the year. Because
Yeah.
for this to be May and we didn't get any gameplay, apparently there is a gameplay trailer of sorts on the site itself, but that was a while ago. They need to show more of this. But until then, I'm going to bet that this gets delayed. But unless we start seeing more in, let's say, February, March, that's my thought on it. But it looks, there's not much to go by here, but it's cool, I guess. I mean, we'll see what they do with it. More to add.
That was kind of my opinion on it. I was like, oh, neat trailer, sweet little tribute to Kevin Conroy and everything, and it's kind of interesting that he's voicing Batman posthumously. So, just kind of an interesting little tribute. But just the real question, in my opinion, is just like yours. We need to see some sort of gameplay because, they have some of the smaller gameplay stuff that they had given previews of, but we need to see something a little bit more substantial, especially after just the last Batman game that came out starring the Bat Kids sometime this year landed kind of poorly. So I imagine a lot of the Batman game fans are probably like, yeah, you guys need to show us something substantive because we're not going to, immediately start going, yeah, we got to drop money on this like now.
Yeah. A Bayonetta prequel was announced. A Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon. It's coming out in March. It looks like it's a top-down Bayonetta-like game.
Yeah, it's kind of got like a storybook feel to it, and it's kind of like a little top-down sort of action game.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting, and I mean, it's an interesting and different type of look at the type of game Bayonetta is. That's cool, but something tells me that the developers who made Bayonetta, Platinum, were hoping for a lot more of a warmer reception to Bayonetta 3 for this to be released. So I don't know if this was a great idea to announce and release so soon. I think this probably would have stood to be delayed just for everyone to forget about Bayonetta 3 for a little bit and then maybe release it the following year. But that's me. I think this is going to hurt its sales because I think a lot of people have issues with Bayonetta 3. Either they have issues with how the performance was or how the game didn't look so great, and then there's some silly people who have the issue of her not being gay. But there are enough people who are not satisfied with the game where I think maybe releasing it shortly after Bayonetta 3 may not be such a hot idea.
This would have been kind of better, in my opinion, that much echoes yours, when sort of the hype on Bayonetta 3 has died down, but, that way it could kind of give a nice shot in the arm of, hey, did you like Bayonetta 3? We've got more of that sweet, sweet lore and everything. But yeah, just a little bit interesting for them to kind of, just drop this announcement there, especially since with the fact that it's a side game, not really a mainline game, I don't feel that there was like quite the excitement that Platinum was maybe hoping for it to have.
All right, let us move on to the next one. Last of Us Part 1 was announced for PC coming in March. Surprisingly enough, it's going to be $60.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting. It's nice that some publishers are realizing that maybe they can't get away with price gouging on PC, but, what are you going to do? $60 coming on PC, and, it's really all there is, unless you have more to add.
The announcement was leaked, I believe, a little while ago, so I think it was more of a matter of when the game was coming out, so good to see a date on it. And I think when me and you were talking during the Game Awards, you had made the comment that the release date is interesting because it is timed right after the HBO TV show ends.
Yes. That's what it seems like. So I don't know exactly how many episodes that the Last of Us season will have, but if it starts in the middle of June and it's let's say it's 7 or 8 episodes, that's around the time where the Last of Us One PC is being released. So that will be interesting to see how the sales go and to see if the word of mouth is good on the Last of Us TV series. So we'll see about that. Star Wars Jedi Survivor gets a March release date, and it had a new gameplay trailer. I mean, it looked just as good as Fallen Order. I mean, I think people are asking for more of that. So that's good. Not really much else to say about it other than that. I mean, it looks like a good one of those.
As someone who kind of likes the Jedi lore stuff, I did think it was interesting that they sort of had just a wide variety of lightsabers and lightsaber stances that Cal Kestis was using, because you had the double saber technique that was used in one part, and then you had kind of like the great sword style that Kylo Ren used that was shown off too. Just a bunch of interesting styles. So, as someone who quite liked Jedi Fallen Order, this one will be interesting to see what all those different saber types do, if it meaningfully changes the gameplay or opens up certain avenues of combat and things like that. I'll be extremely curious to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it would be interesting if having a different stance or a different type of lightsaber does something different on that end, except like different animations. Next up, Death Stranding 2 is confirmed. I kind of lost that bet. I honestly did not think Sony would want to have another Death Stranding, but here we are. Norman Reedus, Lea Seydoux are all in it, and it seems like it's Elle Fanning is also in the game. More cryptic stuff that was shown off in the game, I guess. But yeah, I'm just surprised that they are doing another Death Stranding, to be completely honest. I know it sold pretty well, but it was a very divisive game. And Sony is not of the type of company that that wants to release divisive games, because Days Gone did sell pretty well, but they're not doing another one. Why is that? And my guess is because not the fan base was kind of split as to what their feelings on it, and that's why they didn't continue forward with it. So I'm actually really surprised they went for another Death Stranding.
Though it was kind of nice hearing what the next Kojima project was, because I know for the majority of this year, just the Kojima production site had a real cryptic little caption of "Who am I?" and then whenever there was a new actor introduced or actress, it would show the picture of the new person that was being cast by the studio, and then their name, and then it would flash back to the "Who am I?" caption. And of course, there was wild speculation on what this project was. Some people were like, "Oh man, just maybe it's just some sort of new project." And of course, you had everyone else going, "No, it's got to be another Death Stranding project, because the ending just left the door wide open for a sequel." So you had all this sort of speculation going on about it, and then finally, just to actually get the confirmation, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're also making another Death Stranding." It was kind of nice to have a little bit of closure to the whole speculation saga.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, did you get to play Death Stranding at all, or do you know a lot of people who've seen it or who've played it? Because everything I've heard is either it's got a good story, I guess. It's interesting, but the gameplay is kind of bland, or I've heard mixed things. Like,
yeah, I bought the PS5 remaster, I want to say earlier this year, and I played maybe about 2 or 3 hours of it, and I was just like, this is interesting. I still think that this is likely not my kind of game. I was just like, but I'm all for the weirdness and the art of it. But yeah, I do not think this is my kind of game and everything. And I mean, it's got an interesting story premise and everything. But I know some people who do criticizing it, have been making the criticism of, yeah, this is FedEx, the walking simulator.
Yeah. Yeah. And unless they're going to do something wildly different in this, I don't see them getting more sales out of this. Like I honestly, if unless they change Death Stranding drastically, I don't see it making as much sales as the first one did. So I'm really curious as to what more they show and what they'll do with Death Stranding 2 in this. We have no date. We don't know when it will happen. So we'll see as that comes.
Yeah, and as always with a Kojima game, it'll be ready when it's ready.
Right. Nightingale had a new trailer. Survival games are not my bag. They really are not. But even I can say that this game looks interesting. It has a unique art. It has a very different art style, and it's got some different things that maybe if I were to give it, I might give it a shot. If I ever want to try a survival game, but survival games are your bag. So why don't you tell everyone what you thought of it?
It was kind of neat that I think this trailer really expanded more on the story. That just you get thrown through a dimensional gate, and essentially you're trying to repair the dimensional gate so you can travel to where you need to go. But it ends up opening sort of a giant nexus of worlds that you can kind of warp to different worlds and gather resources and everything. And it's got what looked like block style Minecraft sort of base building stuff going on, which is interesting, especially just if you end up doing something like setting up a multiplayer game with you and 3 of your friends, and you just sort of hunker down and fight off whatever swarms end up attacking your base and everything. So yeah, I think this that Nightingale could potentially be a really interesting game for people who are looking to stream something on Twitch, especially if you've got a couple friends and you're sort of building a base together sort of thing. Overall, just really, really neat looking. I may see about trying to get it, mostly because just I love playing these sorts of games with a good group of people and everything. So yeah, just overall, they didn't really show too much on the gameplay stuff, unfortunately. But I imagine whatever footage that they were showing was probably pre-alpha or alpha footage of how the systems are going or something.
I will say they are showing a lot of Nightingale when they do. Like the one from the PC gaming show from June? They showed a ton of that game. Like I think it was like 10 minutes worth, right? So
I believe so.
They're not shy about showing it, so that's a good sign. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Tekken 8 had a gameplay trailer. No date that I saw, that I remember at least. But I would venture to guess it's 2023. I'm surprised by the mixed feelings on this. Like, I think it looks like Tekken. I mean, okay, and Tekken 7 was great, so I'm looking forward to seeing how 8 is. I was surprised that the feelings towards Tekken 8 went from, oh my god, can't wait, to then seeing this gameplay trailer and going, oh, this looks like shit. What happened? I didn't feel like it looked like crap. I thought it looked like Tekken. Like I didn't like it. So I don't understand what the problem is. And I think people saw the previous trailers and thought that was gameplay when clearly it was not gameplay. That all was what I thought to be just a concept trailer or just a cinematic trailer that looked like the game in some certain extent. So I don't get the hate with this. It looks like a Tekken game. What are your thoughts?
As someone who casually plays Tekken, I thought it looked like just another solid looking Tekken game, and the fighting game community sentiments seem to echo mine, especially because when that trailer dropped, I saw the fighting game community making jokes, making the meme joke about Tekken of this is some more good ass Tekken. And I was just like, all right, well, it seems like the fighting game community is generally happy with it, and I think the sentiment of oh god, this looks like crap and stuff like that. It might if this is like early alpha footage, then they clearly don't understand game development cycles. That just maybe Bandai Namco is more focused on hey, let's make sure this actually plays like a good Tekken game. We'll do art cleanup and stuff on the later stages of the game, but let's make sure we've got a solid foundation first. And from what I've seen in sort of past fighting game development, that's generally the case, that they want to make sure that they've got a solid base to build on, and then from there they'll just go, okay, we've got a solid base, let's build and clean up until release. So maybe that's all this is. That maybe the early trailer just with some gameplay footage is just that. Maybe it's just a very early build, and maybe it'll clean up and look super pretty by the time it gets a little bit closer to release, whenever that is. I think in order to qualify for the next Evo, they would have to get the game out at the latest by April. Maybe May. June would be way too damn close. But if they really want to make this the game to show off at Evo, then they would need to make sure to get the game out at the earliest by sometime in April, and just make sure it's mostly mechanicals are solid, and then just make sure that the game looks good enough, and then they can just do more patching and refining later on. Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of my general take on it, being a fighting game nerd.
I don't think it's going to be ready by then. If anything, I think they'll show off more of it at Evo. From what it looks like, if they haven't announced a date for, they did not announce a date, correct? Am I right on that, or am I misremembering?
I do not believe that. Believe that there was not a date announced.
Yeah, there was no date. If there was going to be, if there isn't a date now, it's not going to be in the next 6 months. I think this is going to be a holiday game. I think this will be October or November, or hey, it might turn out to be the following year. They should not worry about whether it's ready for Evo, because look at what happened with Street Fighter V when they did that. Like, they clearly wanted to make Street Fighter V a esports game. And that game took a couple of years just to get to the state of which it should have been. So I don't think that's a good idea. They should just concentrate on making the game, and if it comes out after Evo, perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. I think it's probably going to be end of year on this one. So we'll see as that time comes. Horizon Forbidden West DLC Burning Shores was announced, coming in April. This is not a surprise at all. This was leaked, or I think there was either it was a leak or it was heavily rumored to be there, and a lot of people agreed that it was going to be. They did the same thing with the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC, so this is not something that is surprising, and something tells me it will be just like that. I think it was the Frozen Wilds is what it was called. It will be DLC that will give you a much more difficult area to traverse through after you beat the main game. So, yeah, looks interesting. I'm gonna guess that people who really liked Forbidden West will want to get this DLC. I don't think it's a lot more. I don't think it's as much as they believe it is, though. Because I remember when Zero Dawn came out, and everyone loved that, and were excited for the DLC. There were a lot more criticisms on Forbidden West. So I don't know how well the DLC will be, but yeah, we'll definitely see on that. That's coming April. What are your thoughts?
I thought that Forbidden West was a fine enough game. It was just kind of more iterating on Zero Dawn, which I really enjoyed Zero Dawn and everything. So yeah, overall, my opinion on it was, just cool. More DLC for a game that I had quite a bit of fun with. I ended up actually just doing a 100% complete run on it too, because I ended up just completing most of the quests and trophies just along the way. And I think by the end, when I got to the end of the game, I was maybe missing one or two trophies, and I was just like, oh well, if only just missing a couple trophies, then yeah, let me just go ahead and do them. And didn't feel like a grind doing them either. So it wasn't like, hey, so this particular trophy is based on RNG, so you better hope you got godly luck for this.
Oh yeah, I hate those. I hate those. I don't think it will sell. Well, I'm not sure how much more that Forbidden West sold aside from Zero Dawn. So that also matters. But I think a lot of people dropped off of Forbidden West. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I can't remember just how bad the drop off rate was or anything, but I know for me, just I was kind of in between jobs when I was playing it, but I managed to, I think, rip through the game within like 2 weeks and clocked in close to 38 hours or something.
That's coming in April. We'll see how that turns out. Diablo 4 was given a release date for June. Good lord. June is going to be busy, dude. Holy
yes,
crap.
yes.
So not only am I getting Diablo 4, I'm also getting Street Fighter 6. Oh my god, I'm not playing anything else. There was no gameplay. It was a cinematic trailer. It's gotten a lot of people excited for what the story might be in Diablo 4. So there's really not much to talk about other than that. But Diablo 4 getting a June release date is pretty cool. My question, my concern is that a lot of people who are in not only the main beta, but they were also in the endgame beta, have said the endgame is not that deep, which is kind of a problem, because either you need to have like a very lengthy campaign, kind of like Path of Exile, where essentially there's a very long campaign that's pretty difficult, or you need to have a robust endgame, which is what I think Diablo 3 had. And it doesn't look like this has either right now. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but we'll see what they do with the seasons as well. What are your thoughts?
The trailer was interesting. I think a lot of the more substantial information was talked about before this little trailer was shown off. That, hey, we've got massive branching skill trees. You can do respecs whenever you want to. Just all the things that a lot of action RPG junkies look for in games like Diablo and everything. I think a lot of the commentary was the vibe of this story trailer seems to match the vibe of like Diablo 2. So for anyone who is really, really, really into just sort of like the dark, macabre vibe of Diablo 2, it looks like you're probably going to be pretty happy with the direction Diablo 4 is going.
Which I get. I know a lot of people miss the look of Diablo 2. It didn't bother me so much for some reason. Like I was fine with it being a little bit more artistic, but if the game still turns out to be as good as Diablo 3 was, then it doesn't really matter. I'll still play it. I do agree with you that the skill trees and the Paragon trees and everything are like huge and look really interesting. So I will give it that. I just am curious as to what the end game is, because really, you only beat the game once, and then you have end game, and the end game is supposed to, and in every one, the end game, and in 3 specifically, lasted a long time. Like I played end game Diablo 3 for years. I guess we'll see about.
Hopefully, either they refine the end game issues that are currently plaguing the closed beta that's going on right now, or they end up maybe doing a revamp that gets the end game to something closer to what players want. Because yeah, much like you, I spent an unhealthy amount of time playing endgame Diablo 3, and it got more fun, at least for me, playing it on Switch when it came out on Switch, because just I was able to just take the game with me on the go, and then just when I was on break at one of my jobs, I would just break out my Switch and go, all right, yeah, let's go crank out a Greater Rift for fun, and then just crank one out within like 5 minutes or something, and go, all right, cool, that was good. Okay, got 25 minutes left on my lunch break. Yeah, let me just go do some more.
Yeah.
So yeah, just hopefully they can solve that. Thankfully, I think it's been announced for Xbox Game Pass, so thankfully I don't have to really worry about putting money down and then going, oh man, this game is really underwhelming. Jesus.
Yeah.
Nope. This was a poor purchase, so thankfully that's not too big a concern for me. But yeah, much like you, June is just going to be such a busy month because just if by some crazy miracle just Blizzard nails down Diablo 4 and gets the end game grind just right, that just kind of has people wanting to play more, and they don't end up being overly aggressive with the microtransactions and stuff like that, it may end up pushing me to just go, hey man, just go ahead and throw down the cash, get the deluxe edition with all the goodies, and just really get into the game.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Crash Team Rumble was announced, a team versus team Crash Bandicoot game. We were kind of confused as to what this actually is. I know you thought it was a MOBA. I kind of didn't think so, but I wasn't sure. So
yeah, it looked like a platforming MOBA because you had like Crash and some of the other characters gathering Wumpa fruits and then tossing them into like their team's basket and stuff like that, which that was where kind of I got the MOBA vibe, especially because it was like, I think it was a 5v5 sort of setup too.
Mm-hmm.
And the immediate thought I had was, wow, this is got like a MOBA vibe to it, because it seems very, very similarly structured to something like Pokemon Unite, where you're gathering resources and stuff like that. I didn't really see much on the tower destruction stuff, so maybe that stuff ends up being added to this game later. But yeah, it was one of those things I was like, oh well, that looks curiously interesting, and yeah, it definitely looks like some sort of MOBA.
They didn't announce a release date, except for it's next year. They would probably need to let people know exactly what this is. And I guess the other question is this going to be a $60, $70 game, or is this going to be free to play? Because if you need a lot of people to play this game, it would venture to guess that it's free to play. Would it not?
I'm thinking it's got to be a free-to-play game. There's just no way, especially with the fact that if it is indeed a MOBA, it's really hard to get people to pay to jump into a MOBA. That's just the nature of the situation, especially if you were to suddenly announce, hey, by the way, guys, this is a MOBA, so $70, please. You're not going to find a lot of people going, yeah, sure, I don't know if this game will stick around or if it might disappear in like 6 months to a year. Sure, here, you can have my $70. So, yeah, I think that might be the path it goes. And if it does indeed turn out to be a MOBA and takes any sort of cues from like MOBAs in general, I imagine one of the things that they'll probably sell is like beta access via like founders packs or something like that. Like, hey, $70 gets you, big fat stack of microcurrency. Oh, P.S. It unlocks all of the characters currently slated to launch with, the first year of the game or something like that.
Yeah. I really don't think it's a MOBA. It sounds more like, what's the name of that Splatoon? It sounds like a multiplayer version of Salmon Run is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, but I mean, it does seem like potentially something like a PvP Salmon Run sort of thing, but yeah, just in my opinion, once we start seeing more stuff, I imagine it could be some sort of weird platformer MOBA sort of thing.
Next up, Company of Heroes 3 is coming to PS5 and Xbox. Man, I do not like RTSs on consoles. I just don't. I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. I know people were saying like Halo Wars and that one Lord of the Rings game was really good on consoles, but I cannot play an RTS on consoles. I don't care how they develop it. So, and Company of Heroes is going to be on console. That's not an incredibly complex game, but it's complex enough where you need a keyboard and mouse, I would say, to do the game right. So this has me a little worried because if it's going to be on console, is this going to be dumbed down? Like I'm a little worried about this. So it's great that other people get to play it. I get it, but if it really affects the gameplay, I'm not too excited. Have you played any of the Company of Heroes games?
Have not. I think
Okay.
I got a bunch of them from like a Humble Bundle way back.
Yeah.
But I will say this with respect to modern consoles. Modern consoles do have the benefit of keyboard and mouse
Oh,
support.
that's right. That's right.
And I could easily see the developers behind Company of Heroes maybe putting some sort of like keyboard and mouse support or something. It wouldn't be hard to do, especially since I think at least on the Xbox side, it's Microsoft has talked about how it's so easy that it's like a toggle to enable keyboard and mouse support. I know PS5 has keyboard and mouse support because that's how I play Final Fantasy 14 on it. Otherwise, I just can't do it on controller.
Yeah. Yeah. Like then they've tried to do MOBAs on consoles too, and they just do not work. So if it doesn't dumb down the PC version at all, then fine. But I just don't see how they're going to do that. But we'll see. No data for that one yet. I'll be curious to see how that turns out. From Software announced a new game, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. I was genuinely excited for this until I remembered what Armored Core was, and I liked the Armored Core games from PS1. But the newer ones, the ones for like the 360 and the PS2, didn't hit well with me. So there was a reason why Armored Core eventually From Software stopped making them. I guess either they kind of ran out of ideas or whatnot. I don't know. But as excited as I am for it, I'm wondering if Armored Core just stopped for good reasons. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if obviously From Software is a development house that can now do whatever the hell it wants because it has such a track record with the Soulsborne games that if they want to do a game where you just take a shit in a fucking hole and that's the whole game and you spend $70 for it, Sony would spend $100 million to develop it just because it's from. But that being said, like, again, I'm excited to see what this is and what they're doing with it. But another part of me is like, I think Armored Core died for a reason. So unless you're going to do something pretty different with it, or you're going to do something that makes a lot of sense, I don't think a lot of people are going to look towards playing another Armored Core when they realize, oh, it's Armored Core. Right. I remember this. This hasn't been good since the PS1.
I think really the big reason that there's excitement is that Hidetaka Miyazaki is taking over leading development on Armored Core.
Okay.
So this has been sort of something that has been a dream level project for him because I know there were some interviews earlier this year with Miyazaki-san, and they were just one of the big questions that a bunch of review outlets, both in English and Japanese, have asked him, hey, if there was one non-Souls project that you would love to revisit, work on, fuck around with, what would be that project? And consistently, he has always said, I would love to give the Armored Core series a crack because I think that there could be some improvements done to the series to make it much more fun and engaging to play, and also maybe make it fruitful and challenging for the players too. And that's sort of been his general stance on it. So honestly, it'll be curious to see if it ends up being another sweaty try-hard game that ends up being produced out of this, and then this becomes the, mecha nerd dream of, oh my god, mecha and Dark Souls, best game ever, sort of like fairy tale. But yeah, it's too early to tell, especially with no gameplay footage at all. It was just your general cinematic announcement trailer with just lots of mech porn and close-ups of targeting systems, missiles, and guns, and just the usual stuff that any Gundam fan would just get so wet and weak in the knees over it.
He cut his teeth on Armored Core. He was a planner on Last Raven, and then he directed 4 and 5, which are the worst ones, literally. But I want to give him some benefit of the doubt. Maybe working on the Demon Souls and Dark Souls games has made him into a much better director, so that maybe if he has Armored Core, he can turn it into something different and a lot better than what it was. Initially I was excited, but then I really thought about it, and I'm like, wait, what more could you do? Because if you really change it up, you're going to piss off the fans that were waiting for that game. But if you make it the exact same thing, you're going to have the same problems. So what are you going to do here? So I'm curious. You're right. We should see gameplay first before we really dive into it. But a part of me, as excited as I am, is like, yeah, but I don't know if this is going to work. So we'll see. We'll see when that happens. No date was talked about. Final Fantasy 16 had a release date announced, and it's, guess what month? June. Oh, Lord. Yes, June 22nd, I think, was the date for Final Fantasy 16. I hope they delay that. I really do. Because that will... I really want to play it, but with Diablo and... what was the other game? Diablo and Street Fighter 6 coming out that same month. Final Fantasy 16 might be the one I pass on. But, yeah.
That one, I know that I'll have to buy it. I'll have to buy it day one because my girlfriend is a huge Final Fantasy fan, and she is one who loathes missing out. So I imagine likely I will have to pick that up, and likely she'll abscond with that copy so fast to play on her own PS5.
Yeah.
So for me, it'll be like, okay, cool. She's playing it. I'm still in my Diablo grind. I'll get to Final Fantasy 16 when I get to it.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do on that one? But yeah, I'm excited for it. The trailers have been excellent. The trailer for this one was really good too. So I am properly excited for this. But
yeah, it's got quite the dream team. I mean, you've got Naoki Yoshida leading the game. You've got the battle designer for Devil May Cry 5, so that's why it's got the action game feel to it. And of course, the trailers have been nothing short of just really, really good. You've got kind of a darkish sort of storyline going for it, which is kind of Yoshi P's wheelhouse. So yeah, just really, really going to be interesting. I will add this. Japan got a special announcement regarding Final Fantasy 16. They're getting a absolutely bonkers collector's edition.
yeah.
And it's just going to be for PS5 only. You get the game, a special DLC sword, a steelbook case, 8 pins, I assume cloth map of the world's universe, a gigantic Ifrit statue where he's just murdering Garuda, and then this all gets packed up in a special collector's box with artwork by Yoshitaka Amano. And this box, when I say insane, it is pretty insane. It is priced at 38,500 yen, or at the current time of this recording, with the conversion rates, this is going to be roughly $283. We have not seen an announcement if this thing is coming to the West. So I'll be really interested to see. I won't be getting it because I don't have room for that giant statue. But yeah, I imagine anyone who's just a extremely hardened Final Fantasy fan is probably just on Square Enix socials every day right now, begging, going, "Hey, is the West getting it? Hey, is the West getting it?"
I've heard nothing but big buzz for this game, so I think this will sell really well when it comes out. I just wish it was another month, but oh well. What are you going to do on that one? That comes out June 22nd of next year. Blue Protocol was announced from Amazon Games and Bandai Namco Online. It's coming out the second half of next year. It is a free-to-play MMORPG that's for PC, Xbox Series X, and PS5. I don't know the type of gameplay this has, but it at least looks interesting-ish. I mean, it looks beautiful, and the animation looks pretty good, but I would like to know more about what this game is. So, until then, I'm curious, but there's not really much more to go on with this. It was more cinematics than anything else.
Definitely looking sort of like, I want to say, kind of like a anime Phantasy Star Online sort of thing going on. Especially with the whole, hey, you've got like 4 players cooperating against bosses and stuff like that. So if this ends up being just like a 4-player action RPG where you do like dungeons and stuff like that, yeah, I could probably be interested. I'll definitely take a look at it and everything. But yeah, just unfortunately, with no substantial gameplay to show off or anything, just I honestly don't know what to say right now.
Yeah. We'll see what more they come up with when they start rolling it out when it comes in the second half of next year. Crime Boss Rockhay City was announced from 505 Games. This has a lot of big actors from the 80s and 90s, and it's got a style like I would describe it as a style between Scarface the movie and Vice City, GTA. And GTA Vice City is my favorite GTA, so that had me really excited. And with the stars that are in it is got me really interested. I am fairly certain this is not going to sell well at all. I don't care how good the quality is. I don't see a lot of people being interested in a game that fashions itself to 80s and 90s action crime dramas. I just don't see it. So
yeah, and I don't know if it's just going to be like a multiplayer only thing or if it's going to be a multiplayer PvE thing. It's just it was just kind of hard to say when they were just more focused on, look at all these wonderful 80s actors that we've got on board.
Yeah. It didn't look like did they announce it was multiplayer? I thought it was a single player type of action game.
It looked like a multiplayer game, at least in my eyes, but I could be dead wrong on that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything in regards to what type of game it is, but in the basis of story and what they're going for, I mean, it could be interesting, but like I said, I don't think this is going to sell very well. And as cool as it is to have Michael Madsen in it, you have to remind people of who Michael Madsen is, okay? Like, the only person that I would think that you may not have to remind people about is Danny Trejo. And Danny Trejo is not an actor. As much as I like him, he's not an actor that can sell movies or games. Unless you count Machete. But other than that, I don't see this selling very well with the talent it has. I'm interested, don't get me wrong, but I hopefully they have more with gameplay in that. But Crime Boss Rockhay City, I don't think they announced the date for that.
It has actually got a date on the Epic Store, March 28th of 2023. The game does have co-op multiplayer on it.
Okay.
So yeah, just the multiplayer's PvE and up to 4 players, but yeah, it's also got some single player stuff too. But yeah, just when I kind of saw the game, I was just like, yeah, I'm not really sure how this is going to pan out, especially the fact that the retail price is going to be $40. Though if you pre-order on the Epic Store has a 20% off discount, so it brings it down to $32. And for anyone despising the whole like multiple editions, you're in luck. This game just has one edition, just the base game. So $32 for the base game, comes out in late March. So decide whether or not it's for you or not.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that turns out. I just do not think it will sell very well. So that's Crime Boss Rockhead City coming out in March. Transformers Reactivate was also announced. It's a co-op action game from Splash Damage. I don't think they showed much on this, but as much as I'm not a fan of Transformers, I will admit that if they do Transformers right, they end up being very good games. I'm thinking about War of Cybertron. I'm thinking about the one that Platinum did for the PS4. Was it Destructor? What was it called? Devastator or Devastation? That was a really good game.
Devastation, I think.
So they can make pretty good Transformers games. But there's not much else to this right now. So Splash Damage is a decent development house, so maybe they can make something interesting off of it. So that's all I got for that. You got more that you want to add?
Yeah, hopefully this is a project that goes over well, because Splash Damage has not really had a great track record lately. One of my favorite games from them was Brink, and while Brink was fun, it had some major issues, and just unfortunately, just that sort of ended up just panning out poorly for the game, and it ended up quickly being abandoned. Then I think Dirty Bomb has kind of had a hit or miss history, with some updates being great and then some updates being not so good. Yeah, so with this one holding on to a major IP, I really, really hope for Splash Damage that this one goes off quite well, because it's not going to go great for them, especially if it ends up poorly, because I imagine just if it does, you may have Hasbro going, let's go ahead and discontinue that license, and then soon afterwards you'll end up seeing an announcement of, hey, so we're going to have to close up our game, and thanks for the fish, we're out of here.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see how that turns out when they announce a date. I don't think they've even announced a date for that. So yeah. Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 had a gameplay trailer. This looks great. This looks really good, which is what I think both of us were kind of afraid of. Was the look of the game when it came out, because even though Space Marine did pretty well sales wise, it wasn't that much of a looker even back then. But this looks like they put a ton of work on it. They did a lot of detail, and it looks really good. So I'm looking forward to it. What about you?
Yeah, this one, for me, my reaction can be summed up by like a Simpsons clip right here. This could be like the Homer clip of where he's just like, yes, oh God, yes. Because just when I saw just how crazy the hordes of just monsters were, I was just like, oh my God, this is just like peak Warhammer 40K lore right here. Just Space Marines just hacking up just swats and swats of just alien factions. I was like, yep, this is exactly what the lore writes out some of the great conflicts of the Space Marines look like. That it's just tons and tons and tons of opponents, and you've got these just super superhuman characters just shredding dudes up with boltors and chainsaw swords and everything. And I was just like, yep, this is coming together just exactly like what I want. Just it's true to the lore, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, like I said, the one thing I was a little worried about was how the game would look, but this took away that fear. Like, I was like, okay, this looks amazing. So I am looking forward to it. So no date as of right now. Is it still, or did they announce their date previously? I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I don't think it's this year. I think it's this next coming year, but we'll see. We'll see if more is being told about it as time goes on. I think the only other announcement we have, unless you have something I forgot, is Remnant 2, which is deeply ironic because you've been playing Remnant from the Ashes for the past week.
2 weeks actually, yeah.
Oh wow! Okay.
And it was something that a close friend of mine sent me during the Steam Thanksgiving sale. So, yeah, just been putting just massive time into it and everything. And while Remnant 1 had its issues, the cinematic stuff that they're setting up with some of the gameplay stuff that they're setting up just looks really, really neat. So I know a lot of Remnant fans are wondering if some of the jank will be sorted out because melee is definitely not the strong point of the game.
No, it's not. No.
Especially since there are some moments where just some of the bosses just have like some inhuman tracking for some of the melee attacks and everything. So I know a lot of the Remnant fans are like, yeah, I hope that they sort this out or sort out the melee combat stuff because, you know, I like melee combat more than ranged, and some people are just like, you know, I hope that they've got some more varied options on range combat, which I think that's definitely more true this time around because one of the characters in this gameplay trailer had kind of a longbow and arrow setup, so there's that. You've got a tribute to the Resident Evil 4 Chainsaw Man in here, with a monster just trying to rip up one of the Remnant player characters and everything. So yeah, just looks interesting. I have yet to get the true ending, which one of the Remnant DLCs added, so I need to get cracking on that. But yeah, just be interesting to see where story-wise this whole thing fits in with respect to the true ending of Remnant from the Ashes. But yeah, just I'll be really, really watching this one closely, especially since the studio behind it is Gunfire Games, which, for anyone who may not be familiar with the name, they were behind the Darksiders games. And unfortunately, with the last Darksiders games, the last Darksider game underperforming massively, this seems to be sort of the studio's outlet to make something of themselves.
Okay. Well, they're given a property that basically overperformed in terms of what people thought of it. So let's hope they pull that off. No date for Remnant 2 as of right now.
Yeah, I believe that they've put it up for wish listing on Steam so far.
Okay.
And they've mentioned that they'll have pre-orders up for some of the other online game stores and stuff like PSN and Xbox. Meet Your Maker, that one looked interesting as hell.
Meet Your Maker. Hold on.
That was the one where you build the dungeon.
Oh,
and
yes!
You and your friends sort of like scale the dungeon and everything.
Yes, that did look interesting. I completely forgot about that. It's not, none of the sites are covering it, but I guess that's kind of why I forgot about it. But yeah, that did look interesting. Looks good, but yeah, the concept itself is, I think, what really matters in that. It reminded me of Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. Do you remember that game?
Yes. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that, but hopefully it's executed a lot better. But yeah, that definitely looked like an interesting game to check out. I got to remember that one. Okay.
Yeah, it comes out April 4th and everything too. So yeah, I think really the one thing that I'll be real curious about is they say it's coming out for PC on Steam, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. Mm-hmm. I really do hope that they have cross-platform multiplayer, because that would just be great to just help filling with lobbies and everything. Because, yeah, I just love the idea of, someone building a raid map and then just everyone just kind of grouping up and going, okay, let's try to take on this map and see if we can get to the end and get to the sweet loot or whatever.
Okay, so overall, the announcements that were announced from the Game Awards, what were your thoughts? I thought this was a pretty strong showing for what the Game Awards had.
Oh yeah, generally most things were shown off seemed like they were pretty good or exciting announcements. So overall, I think everything was a strong showing for the most part. I do hate that some games were just, hey, here's a giant story trailer, and just or not story trailer, but here's a cinematic trailer, just showing how pretty the game looks off and whatever. So I was just like, okay, nice. But yeah, just the trailers that did show substantial gameplay, definitely great to see. It was just like, okay, I have a general understanding of what this game's about, and either it's for me or not for me. So great, excited for this game. Hey, gameplay was shown for this game. Not quite my game, but probably exciting for anyone who's hyped for this game.
I was impressed with what they shown on here, and it's just going to further cement that the Game Awards is now a vital part of the gaming calendar for announcements and everything. So it basically is going to be E3 is going to announce everything that's coming from June to, I would say, December, and then the Game Awards will be the following year, January through June, with some exceptions, of course. So I think this was for the announcements, it was pretty strong. And it was also a decent show. I thought some things went a little too long, like award speeches, but that can't be helped. But yeah, it was a decent show. I actually liked it. Most years I begrudgingly say, yeah, it's good for what it was. But this is actually turning into a pretty entertaining show, because I think Keighley and the people who run it realize what people want to watch. And it's not the awards, it's the announcements. So, yeah, good show overall, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely a solid show, and again, just it's a testament to Jeff Keighley building what something a little bit closer to what he wants, especially since just the dark days of the award show back when it was on Spike TV were bad.
Oh my god, that was horrible.
Those were dark days.
I mean, when Jack Black did it that one year, it was okay. But, wasn't Neil Patrick Harris an award host one year? And you could tell he did not want to be there. He was like, I don't play games like you freaking nerds. I'm like, oh, good lord. It's like, it was a decent show, and it will be interesting to look forward to what happens next. All right, Xeris, let's go to the next topic here. You might be noticing something on screen. That's right, we actually have video on screen. Shocking, isn't it? If you're looking at the YouTube channel right now, I have a wheel, a spinning wheel here on from wheelofnames.com that has a bunch of topics to discuss our year in review of the gaming news this year. What's going to happen is I'm going to spin the wheel, and then me and Zero are going to discuss what happened with this said topic. Why don't we get started right now, Zero? Are you ready to spin that wheel?
Yeah, let's do it.
Dun 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 dun. Oh my god. Oh, okay, here we go. First topic that we're going to do in review. Square Enix sells studios. Around the beginning of the year, what happened is that Square Enix sold 3 key studios to Embracer Group. One was Crystal Dynamics, the other was Eidos Montreal, and the other was Square Enix Montreal, which turned into another named studio, which doesn't matter because they then closed the studio anyway.
Yep.
Okay, so now that we have that information, why don't we go ahead and talk about the topic at hand? What led to... Let me ask you this to start off. What led to Square Enix wanting to sell Eidos Montreal, Crystal Dynamics, and Square Enix Montreal?
I want to say that it was due to just the Western studios underperforming the metrics that Square Enix Japan wanted.
Yes.
Because for just many years, and I've gone at length about this, just Square Enix Japan's executives have always wanted the Square Enix Western Studios to just make absolute gangbusters level sales for these games, and usually the games that they were trying to sell just simply weren't the mega hits that they were thinking them out to be. Last example I think I mentioned in that episode was the 2013 reboot of Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
And how they were hoping that the sales on that game would beat Call of Duty for that year. And it was just like, my reaction when I read that that quarterly financial report, I was just like, you guys have to be smoking something, because Tomb Raider fans are typically not Call of Duty fans. You're not going to find much crossover on that.
Yeah.
And of course, just the stock report or the financial report was like, yeah, just this is a Western game from a big brand, so we have high hopes and high potentials for this. And I was just like, I don't know what you guys are thinking or smoking, but there's no way. There's just no way. And of course, financial quarter after the release of the Tomb Raider reboot happened, and then it was just like, yeah, so we are deeming Tomb Raider a failure because it didn't beat the sales numbers of Call of Duty. And it was just like, well, yeah, duh, because there's no crossover between those two brands. And then same thing for the Deus Ex game that came out. Just, hey, we're hoping that with this game being released that, it will beat sales numbers of the latest Call of Duty game. And Deus Ex was a single-player game, and it was just like, again, what are you guys thinking? And then, of course, next quarterly report, yeah, so Deus Ex is a failure because it didn't beat Call of Duty. It's just like, again, what are you guys thinking? And just a clear misunderstanding of just what their studio had. And then I want to say the former lead of Square Enix Montreal and Eidos Montreal recently had came out when we had covered this story, saying that he felt that the leadership at the Square Enix Western Studios was also really bad too.
Yeah.
I believe it was Stefan Astus, Stefan Distus. He had commented on it back when we originally reported it, and then when UMA, the renamed Square Enix Montreal studio behind the mobile games like Hitman Go and stuff like that, when their closure happened, I believe that a lot of game journalists ended up pinging him about it, going, hey, so one of the studios you founded completely folded on itself. What are your thoughts on it? And he kind of reiterated his thoughts from earlier this year, saying, I got nothing against the studio, but unfortunately the management in that studio are pretty terrible, and they never changed after the purchase. And not really a surprise that they're being shut down. So sad to see it go, but I just think that poor management led that studio to die.
Like you said, they kept over projecting what their Western games would do. You mentioned Tomb Raider and Deus Ex. Just Cause was another. And this seemed to be something that I would say that Square Enix just kept on doing. And I think the catalyst to them finally selling the studios was what happened with Marvel's Avengers. Because Marvel's Avengers was based on a Marvel property. Marvel is incredibly hot right now. And that game actually underperformed. That did not do very well. But it's also because people were not interested in the style of game that it was. And also it didn't turn out very well. That underperformed, which then led to Guardians of the Galaxy underperforming as well because the stink of Avengers. Which at that point, my guess is when Square Enix said, okay, these guys are incompetent, we got to get rid of them. Which was not fair to that certain extent. Because first off, asking Crystal Dynamics to make an Avengers beat-em-up style, a live service beat-em-up game with the Avengers was like the absolute wrong studio to use that with. And Guardians of the Galaxy ended up getting fantastic reviews, but poor sales. And the poor sales essentially meant to Square Enix that, oh, okay, well then we're done with the studio because they can't do anything right to us, which led them to sell off those 3 studios for a paltry sum of $300 million to Embracer Group. That's a fire sale. That is like, we need to get rid of these assets right now, which I was stunned by when this happened. Because say what you will about Marvel's Avengers, okay? I will say that game is not very good. But Crystal Dynamics, and I would say, I think it was Eidos Montreal, and Eidos Montreal, are very good studios that make really good games. I mean, you could have gotten double that pretty easily, but they gave Embracer a sweetheart deal to get those 3 studios. And yeah, they ended up closing the Square Enix Montreal studio, but you still have 2 really good studios with some very good IP that people want to see games for, including Legacy of Kain, which Embracer and Crystal Dynamics have already said, yeah, we're doing it, don't worry. It's like, we are doing it. What do you think led them to actually sell the studios off? Like, what was the catalyst? Was it the quality of the games they were turning out, or was it something else?
I will say that I probably agree with you that the straw that broke the camel's back was likely the Marvel's Avengers game.
Yeah.
Because just there was so much marketing hype on that one. I remember it was almost kind of like a weekly or almost monthly blitz of, oh, get excited, it's going to be good, it's going to be good, it's going to be good. And then the moment things started to turn sour was right before release, when they had announced, hey, so by the way, we're going to do a partnership with Sony. So Spider-Man is going to be exclusively locked to PlayStation. And that was when you had people really sour out going, well, this stinks. I play on PC and I wanted to play Spider-Man. And now you're telling me I can't play Spider-Man? Okay, fuck this. I'm going to cancel my pre-order on Steam. And same for people on Xbox. Oh, Spider-Man's limited to PlayStation? I don't have interest in getting a PS4 or PS5, so fuck that. Return to my pre-order. So that was one thing that happened. And then the launch was disastrous because a lot of people were just like, hey, this game isn't really balanced correctly. And then I want to say it was about 1 month in when people started getting to Endgame. People had said, wow, I don't know who set up the loot tables on this. They're fucking awful. How can I get worse gear by opening a loot chest after completing an Endgame event? This is bullshit. And, the grind is no longer fun. Finally, all the complaints came to a head that they had to put out sort of like a state of the game sort of messaging, saying, hey, we hear your complaints, we're working on them, sorry, we'll get things fixed, don't worry about it, please, dear God, be patient with us, we will get things fixed, and dear God, just please forgive us. And so you had that going on too. It was just a grand shitstorm, just so many things sort of dominoing out. And honestly, I don't blame the players for getting mad, because with a live service game, the last thing you want to tell your players is, hey, you're playing the game wrong, just shut up and everything will be fine, which was what they did for the beginning of the Marvel's Avengers game. And then, of course, all this bad PR was leading to just additionally a lack of return on the financial side for the microtransaction store. And I think just when you had the initial sales of the game being down and then no return sales happening on the microtransaction store, that was probably when Square Enix was just like, hey, we gotta get rid of the studio. This studio is now just dead weight to us. We've overinvested on this. We paid likely a heavy license for the Marvel IP for games and stuff like that. We got to get rid of this. Just toss it out the airlock and shut the door. We got to get rid of the studio. And again, I'm also in agreement with you that it was totally unfair, because this sort of baggage also put a lot of skepticism on the Guardians of the Galaxy game by Crystal Dynamics. That one was a really good game. I played it last year, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm not the biggest comic fan. I'm not someone who follows the comic universe just to a T. I'm definitely not a big Marvel Cinematic Universe person either. I like some of the movies enough, but I'm not one who's like following every single little thing that the movies are doing. But yeah, I really thought that the Guardians of the Galaxy game was a lot of fun, and it was a real bummer because of the fact that just because of the poor reputation that the Marvel's Avengers game got, it sort of put the Guardians of the Galaxy game under this humongous shadow of, yeah, you should be skeptical of games being produced by Crystal Dynamics because they could be complete fucking duds. And unfortunately, this was a game that was much more fun and had just a great vibe and everything, but due to the poor reputation that Marvel's Avengers got, it just built up this big shadow of be very, very, very careful of what the studio's selling. And I think that ended up just being one of those sorts of things that just left people really, really leery to drop money on the Guardians of the Galaxy game. And because of that, the Guardians of the Galaxy game undersold. Granted, I think it's now become sort of like a cult classic sort of hit now because everyone's just like, oh yeah, you know, that the Guardians of the Galaxy game was actually pretty damn good. So yeah, you should pick it up. And unfortunately for the bean counters and everything, by the time it became a cult classic, it was too little too late.
Yeah, the Avengers really did it because of how much money they spent on it and what little they got in return. But we also need to put in one thing that was going on, too, at the time when they sold this, and that is the talk of cryptocurrency and NFTs. Square was about to go pretty deep into it. Konami started doing NFTs. I forgot what other companies were as well. But Square Enix was definitely talking about getting into NFTs at the time, too. Which, when they sold those studios, I think they even said a reason was to build up their blockchain and NFT stuff as well, and to get that running. So there was that as well with that, which they then, I think, a couple months later had to pull back on because of the problems NFTs were having. This could be one of two things, I think, as the reason why they sold these studios. One is general incompetence and just a poor job of managing these companies underneath Square Enix. That to lead to not only sell those studios, but to sell them as cheaply as they did is just. I shook my head when I heard that because I didn't believe it at the time. I think we were on the phone when we found out, and we're like, "There's no way they sold those for $300." I'm like, "Oh my god, they did!" It's like I couldn't believe it. But it's either like just general incompetence, or the other thing that was being talked about is that they're trying to sell the Sony, and in order to sell the Sony, they had to make the Square Enix a lot leaner. And one way of doing that was to get rid of some of the studios. Now, the closing down the studios was not going to be a good idea for PR reasons, and just that you are now assuming that debt as soon as you close them down. So the other option was to sell them off, which I guess the Sony thing makes a little more sense. But now that Sony has been trying to fight Microsoft in getting Activision Blizzard, I think Sony has now shied away from acquiring other studios for the time being. So that leaves really Square Enix in kind of a bind right now, I think. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, especially if they were trying to lean themselves out and hope that Sony would just go ahead and pick them up and everything. Then, yeah, just with Sony saying, yeah, we're gonna hold off on doing any sort of major purchases. Yeah, this definitely puts Square Enix in a bit of a pickle, in my opinion, because at that point it's just like, okay, so what do we do in the meantime until Sony gets into a buying mood? what do we do? And it's just kind of interesting, especially since the last quarterly financial report that Square Enix has released, they still have mentioned that, hey, we're still on board with NFTs because we think blockchain is the future and everything. So
Oh God.
I'm just like, oh, no, 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 please, no. This is just kind of an interesting sort of situation right now, but just who knows? Maybe they get something going on that want to revisit some stuff. I honestly just don't have much of a clue.
Yeah. So let's expand a little bit outwards. What do you think is going to happen with Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal in the next few years?
As long as they release games that sell consistently or well, then they may end up being able to branch out their wings and do the stuff that they and their fans have wanted them to do. One of the big things that everyone's been asking for has been, hey, we would love, love, love a good remaster of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver and just the Legacy of Kain series in general, or even hell, a full-out remake. So that's been one project that's been floated around. People have been asking for more Deus Ex because sweet Deus Ex lore. And I believe that under the Embracer management, they did just announce, hey, we've got a Deus Ex game that is currently in the planning and development stages. We don't have enough to talk about it yet, so we'll get back to you when we get back to you. I know Hitman technically doesn't count because that was IO Interactive, even though they're technically under the Embracer umbrella now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think overall it just sounds like that they will be able to sort of realize the projects that they've wanted to do under Embracer's management, because Embracer seems like they're generally pretty good with studios that do sell consistently or beat expectations, that they let them kind of have free reign to do whatever the hell they want. It isn't until a studio fucks up and does something bad or sells poorly that Embracer maybe pulls back and says, hey, maybe we should have you slow your roll and shift you around to somewhere else. And a great example of that is Volition and Saints Row, the reboot, which that one sold poorly, and it was recently announced that Embracer was going to reroute the Volition team to be a support studio for Gearbox.
Yes.
So, yeah, just as long as, to borrow a phrase from James May from Top Gear, as long as they don't cock it up, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. So Crystal Dynamics is working on Perfect Dark with Microsoft right now. So they are busy, but Crystal Dynamics is also a big studio, so they can afford to have, I guess, some of their members working on other projects. I think they pretty much have just said they're working on Legacy of Kain right now. So, and specifically something with Soul Reaver. So there's that as well. There's definitely gonna be another Deus Ex unless Eidos has something that they think is much more worth our time. So I think those are coming back. It looks like with Embracer, those might be one of the crown jewel those both might be crown jewel studios that they will want to put in as much money as possible for them to make those games and to make them well. So I think we may not hear from them in the next couple of years, but when we do, it will be something that will be pretty big. I think, at least. So we are at the end of this episode of the Capital Games Podcast. But before we go, Zero. Oh, okay.
So, this one ties into something that has just launched as of yesterday. So Microsoft, in cooperation with Riot Games, has added a new perk to Xbox Game Pass, which is that if you link your Riot account to Xbox Game Pass, you will get the perk of unlocking all the heroes on League of Legends, all of the agents in Valorant. You'll get, I believe, most of the basic cards for Legends of Runeterra, and you'll also get all the heroes unlocked for League of Legends Wild Rift, and also Teamfight Tactics. huge opportunity to get into any of the Riot games right now, especially if you're a Game Pass member. And the character unlocks and stuff like that, they last for as long as you maintain your Xbox Game Pass sub. But as usual, Riot and Microsoft do make the disclaimer that if there is a character that you just absolutely adore playing in any of their games, then you can just buy them outright, and you'll keep them whether or not you have your sub. So, kind of a neat way to allow anyone who's new to these games to try out whichever characters they think are interesting, and then potentially go, you know what? I like this character. I'm gonna buy them out, and I'm gonna buy out all their sweet bling costumes and everything. So, my question to you is, with this big announcement that Microsoft and Riot are teaming up to give just a bunch of new players the ability to try out Riot's game catalog, what is your favorite Riot game out of all their stuff?
Well, I have played everything except Valorant, and the only reason why I haven't played Valorant is because I do not like playing first-person shooters on keyboard and mouse, because I am terrible with it. And with what I heard, with how I've heard how competitive Valorant can be, I think putting me there is a terrible idea. So it's definitely not going to be Valorant. I liked Legends of Runeterra. I thought it was a decent card game. It just did not hook me. And I like team fight tactics a lot. I preferred that over Dota Underworlds, even though I started playing those types of games with Dota Underworlds. But my answer is League of Legends. Like, League is a game that I played for years from this point. What got me into it is the old website we used to write and do podcasts for. They had the idea of doing an article with me specifically, of me getting into League and my thoughts on it and if I would stick with it. We ended up not doing the article, but I ended up getting hooked and pretty deep. I ended up playing that. I've been playing it since, but I didn't really get deep into it, like competitive into it, until I came back from Jersey after I got sick. And when I got sick, I lost my job. And when that happened, I had no money, but I wanted to play something that was fun, it will keep me entertained, and League was it. So I would ostensibly play League and Gwent, and that was it, and that's what really got me into League. Now, I want to say this right off the bat. I suck at League. I'm terrible at League. Like, if you're asking, what rank were you? I never got past silver. I'm bad at it. After a while, I just resigned myself and saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to be competitive in this at all. I might as well just stick to casuals and just be fine there, which is exactly what I did in that. But I do appreciate people who can be competitive in it. But I really liked my time with League, and and here's the thing that really got me. I love the character designs in this game. The characters look great. The backstories that they have are actually really good. They put a lot of thought into it, which makes me excited for not only the MMO they're doing, but the fighting game that they're doing too, the Project L. Like, I am beyond excited to see what they do with that, because the characters are actually really good. So, like, League has one huge problem, that's toxicity. The people who play it, and I understand why, because League in itself is a very competitive game, and League in its nature is one mistake costs the match. And I've been in situations where, let's just say, I made a critical error and lost a fight that was about 90 minutes long by that critical error. That's happened to me, and it's not a great feeling. So, yeah, League is my favorite Riot game. I understand why it's popular. I still watch it competitively at certain times. It is a fantastic game, but it's such an intimidating game that's hard for me to recommend to other people. But I love League. What about you?
As far as the Riot stuff goes, I really didn't put much time into League, mostly because just I think what shied me away was just the toxic community, because if I remember correctly, I had some local friends, local to me, who had been like, "Oh man, we're playing League again, and oh, it's so good. You gotta join. You gotta join." And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll play some games. Just try to find a character that I jive with, and we'll go from there." And then I don't know or don't remember what it was, but there was a match that, and this was a player versus AI match, so not even like a PvP match even, but I had messed up or did something wrong, and it was likely a beginner level mistake, but just this one real sweaty tryhard just absolutely lost his shit
Oh
and
yeah.
just railed on me. It was just like, "Oh my god, you incompetent dingus! You, how dare you feed the opposing team? Just, you're the worst player in the world. Go fucking kill yourself and drink some bleach." And I'm sitting here going, "Yo, this is my first match. I literally don't know what I did." And this guy just, when I made that mention, they absolutely lost it even further. Like, "Oh, you're a freaking noob. Get off this get off this fucking game. This game is only for the best of the best." And I'm sitting here going, like, just thinking to myself, "What the shit? This is just a PvE match. What in the world? You're probably not losing ranks over this. What in the world is going on here?" This guy just absolutely just lost his marbles over it, and I was like, "Okay, well, if that's gonna be how it is, never mind. Not gonna play much. Not gonna play much of League and stuff like that." So that was what I kind of left it at, and then played a little bit of Legends of Runeterra for a bit, because I had a friend on the Discord say, "Oh yeah, just so much better than Hearthstone and everything," and just I didn't really stick with it either, so I was just like, "Okay, neat game, but not for me." Um, haven't played Valorant because I just haven't gotten around to it, and then I did play Teamfight Tactics and Wild Rift on my phone last weekend, just to kind of try them out before the account linking stuff was set up on Monday. And Wild Rift seemed pretty neat. Only did some PVE matches just to kind of get a feel for it. Um, definitely jiving with Ari, because just she's got kind of a playstyle that feels very, very reminiscent to me of Sylvanas from Heroes of the Storm. So quite like playing that, and the fact that right now Wild Rift on mobile has no text or voice chat right now, kind of made it nice. So just not didn't really have to deal with like toxic chat or anything like that. Just it was just more, hey, focus on the game, just focus on playing, and just things happen the way they happen, and you just got to be observant of just your surroundings and stuff. And so that felt pretty fun. And Teamfight Tactics, while I'm not really the best at it and everything, that felt pretty fun too. So of the two that I've actually put a little bit of time into, probably have to say maybe Wild Rift is more what I'm into right now so far, mostly because of just the fact that I really didn't have to deal with community toxicity, because just, again, there's no text chat, there's no voice chat right now. So it was just kind of okay, just get in, play, focus on the match, and if you do good, great. If you didn't do great, then go to the metrics tab, learn where your weak spots are, and just kind of learn to play better from there.
That's always been the problem with League, is that the learning curve is steep, and the competitiveness in the game is pretty hardcore. Even if you're on casual, even if you're doing PvE, good lord, on PvE. I've had one time where we lost on a PvE. That was an interesting time. That's happened to me too, where I made a single mistake, and I just get blasted by somebody in chat, and it's terrible. And I personally hate it. To be completely honest, I think it's terrible. Even if you do a pretty bad mistake. But yeah, but even I can admit, League is what got me into MOBAs, and I was able to learn it pretty well for a good period of time to where I got comfortable with the game. And there are not games like this really anymore where the more time you put into it, like the more rewarding it is, which is why I guess I stick with League whenever I go back to MOBAs, or if I really want something competitive and deep, I will go into League. But you still have to learn so many other systems in order to play the game. So it is my favorite, but every time like I try and get into it, I have to keep reminding myself, oh, there's a ton of stuff I have to read before I actually get into it. So maybe not. But yeah, League is my favorite. I think Teamfight Tactics is like my second favorite of Riot's. But I don't know about you, but I can't wait for Project L. I want to see what that turns out to be.
Yeah, Project L looks super interesting. I think the change to them going for a 2v2 team setup, kind of like BlazBlue cross tag battle, is really interesting, especially since initially Project L was going to be billed as a 1v1 sort of thing, but to see them take it into a 2v2 direction, I'm really interested. And the preview build that they were showing off in one of the more recent videos showing the current state of development, where they had showed off Ari's moveset, I was just like, yep, jiving with her moveset. I'm really into it. So cannot wait to check her out in Project L. I know the new character that they revealed was interesting because she's got like spectral like tentacles going on for like a zoner sort of play.
Allow it,
but also but also just the character's also a grappler too. So I was like, oh shit! So you've got a grappler who's also got ranged options. Okay, this could be very interesting.
Yeah, and she's a pain in the ass in the top lane. Like, if I have to go against her in top lane, I'm not having a good time. But yeah, Alawi's interesting. As much as Riot gets a lot of flack on things, which they deserve, they make fantastic games. So I'm really looking forward to their new stuff coming. And now that it's on Game Pass, maybe there's more people, more new people who will play League that will make me feel powerful in League again. So we'll see how that goes.
Honestly, just I may have to try to give League another shot and see how it is and everything. Though I imagine I'll probably be limited to likely just PvE stuff because I just don't have the bloodthirst in me anymore for PvP.
I think they do also have special types of game modes that I think you'd be interested in too. Or you might just find that you will get into League in general. Like, you will need somebody to Sherpa you into it. But that's what it took me. It took me numerous matches and Nick to actually really dive me into the game. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right. Well, we are at the end of this podcast for the Capital Games Podcast. Next week, we will be discussing more year in review stuff for the gaming news. So tune in next week. We discuss more of what happened in the video game industry this year. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Talk to you next week. Bye.